Hi, guys. In a world of digital media and instant gratification and distractions, bread and circus, I wanted to talk about the need for human intimacy and loving touch. I know that these are very, very important because I grew up largely without it. Many of you know that I was raised by a narcissistic mother. She didn't hold me much as a child. She had a lot of health concerns herself, but it just wasn't something that came naturally to her. I grew up with physical touch being a very confusing thing with the sexual abuse, my own sexual abuse, the sexual abuse that was happening to my siblings, and the sexual abuse that my mother had experienced caused a lot of confusion as well. My mom never liked to be touched. She would often tell us not to touch her because we were dirty or we were hurting her. As I grew up, I wasn't allowed to give hugs because I had breasts. We always gave little side taps. And my dad wasn't around a lot. When he was around, he didn't really give affectionate hugs either. The affection that I got from my dad was always like fun and excitement around holidays, or when it snowed, he would get excited about taking us tubing or tying a tube to the back of the truck, or when it was hot, putting a swimming pool into the back of the truck and driving around. And so we always had fun with my dad, and those were joyful memories for me. But I don't remember a lot of love and affection from him. Neither, grandparents on either side didn't really feel a lot of that either. Maybe a comment here or there or something that made me feel good. In the school system, it's very, very just we're hurting through the numbers, through the hours, getting through the day. I didn't feel very much love from teachers. I had a couple of teachers again that made a comment or two that was kind and helpful, but the public school system, we've gotten far away from physical touch there, obviously, and then when it came to the time where I was able to have boyfriends, then I got very confusing responses from my boyfriends as well. When my boyfriends would hug me or touch me, I would feel loved, and it was something that I didn't feel at home. But sometimes that loving touch would go into touching inappropriately, or dry grinding, and I would be in shock or just kind of go into that like freeze mode and not really know what to do, feeling this split in my body of I really, really need this, but I'm very, very bad for needing it. In church, kind of feeling the overall sense that our bodies are bad and that the desire for sex was bad. And then in my married years, I've kind of discussed some of this again. My husband has been a very stubborn and very closed off kind of person. And every time I tried to tell him what I needed, he would go into victim mode, and it got very confusing. And then when we were being intimate, he did what, he learned on porn and pretty much learned from nowhere else. Because of the lack of education, because of the fear, we just kind of overprotect, I think, our children, and we don't teach them. We're afraid or nervous to teach them, or sometimes we overteach and we actually cause more harm. And I had a variety of those kind of experiences. Sex was always very, very confusing for me. Caused a huge split in my body, in myself, in my being. And I experienced this. Well, I wanted to start with our wedding night. Our wedding night was pretty awful. It felt like rape again. And the sad thing is that several of my friends, as I've discussed this with them as well, had kind of a similar experience. And again, the problem is that we're not talking about it. And so in our circumstance, my husband and I had talked about sex before we got married. And we talked about that, maybe it was scary for me because of my experiences, and maybe we should ease into it. And so I suggested that we play strip poker because I knew poker was something that he liked to play. And so we did that, and it was kind of like on our wedding night, kind of just intimidating, but okay, we're easing into it. And then right after that, he just penetrated me, and it hurt, and there was nothing in between. There's bleeding there, he rolls over and just tickles himself. This is something that was very common. He self-soothes by tickling his side, and me having that desperate need for that touch just kind of felt like used and discarded again. And anyways, with my children, I really wanted to pass on that loving touch for them, and spent a lot of time making sure that they felt loved through physical touch. I wasn't one of those moms that would put my kids in car seats and carry them, to the restaurant or to the store in the car seat. Anytime that I could carry my child close to me, I did. Anytime that they were napping, I'd cuddle with them and nap with them as much as possible. Just because I just felt so how much that was important. And as time has gone on, because of my own confusion, because of being raised by a narcissist, I've had a lot of self-doubt. And when I would tell my husband what I needed, and he would kind of dismiss, like, oh, I already did that, check off the list, or sometimes go into victim mode. What? You don't accept my offering? I'm not a good enough husband, or what? Type of thing. And I would just shut off, and I'd be like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm too much of a burden. I have too many needs. But the truth is that every human being needs physical touch, needs loving physical touch. And what I've found through the years of healing through all of my trauma is that I can tell very, very strongly, and hopefully this is the case for everyone if you just pay attention, but I can very, very easily tell if someone is giving love or they are not, if they have an open heart or not. When you receive a hug that is empty, just kind of a tap, 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 we're done, it doesn't really do anything for you. But when you receive a good, open-hearted, loving hug, it kind of fills a little bit more of that bucket and gives you a little bit more fuel to run on that day. Guys, love is everything. In fact, I believe that it is the reason why we even have bad guys, people that will do the most horrific, evil things. My belief is that they do it for love, because they have a lack of love in their youth, and this is their way of controlling and feeling some sort of endorphins, and maybe even love from the dark side, from the demons even. And so I would just like to see more of us having these healthy conversations, especially with our children, being very, very careful about the way we talk to our children, telling them what is appropriate and not appropriate, so that we don't cause the splits in people where they feel like they're evil because they have a body. And I really think that we need to acknowledge the fact that we need loving sex. I've seen people whose relationships fall apart because of sex. I've seen people who just grow really, really obese, 300 pounds, and then die because they're not having good sex. And sex is very powerful. It's a God-given way of keeping us together as spouses and in families. It is a God-given way of healing our traumas and our losses and the things that we have missed out on as children. And it's a need. I know several people who do shut it off, and I just believe with all my heart that they're not whole, that there's no completeness, there's something missing. And maybe some of these people that are able to do that received a little bit more love in their childhood. But from experience, this is what I believe. Love is important. Love is everything. Physical touch is a need, loving physical touch, and that we should be free to talk about these needs and comfortable to talk about what we're feeling and what's good in a healthy marriage and what's good out of it and with our bodies. And anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.